The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the calm kind. The heavy kind that presses on your chest and makes you want to disappear. We were sitting at a long wooden table in Mark's parents' dining room. The table was so shiny I could see my own face in it. Pale, nervous, smiling too hard. I should have known that smile wouldn't last. Linda, my husband's mother, folded her napkin slowly and looked straight at me. Not with love, not even with curiosity, with judgment. "So, Emily," she said, her voice sweet like fake honey, "we need to talk about the baby." My heart dropped. I hadn't even finished my salad. Mark shifted in his chair beside me. He didn't look at me. He stared at his plate like it had the answers to life written on it. I swallowed. "What baby?" Linda smiled wider. "Don't play dumb. You've been married to our son for 2 years now." Robert, Mark's father, cleared his throat. "At your age, it's time." There it was. The reason I never liked family dinners. I forced a small laugh. "Mark and I talked about this. We're not ready, and I'm not comfortable having a baby before we—" "Before what?" Linda cut in sharply. "Before we're properly settled. And honestly," I said, my hands shaking under the table, "I don't believe in having a baby out of wedlock agreements we didn't both agree on." The room froze. Mark finally looked at me. His eyes were wide, scared. Linda's smile vanished. "What did you just say?" she asked. I felt every eye on me. Linda, Robert, Mark's younger sister Jessica, pretending to text but clearly listening. Even the wall clock felt louder. "I said I won't have a baby just to please someone else," I said quietly. "Especially not when it goes against my values." Linda pushed her chair back, so hard it screeched against the floor. "This is unbelievable," she snapped. "We invite you into our home, feed you, treat you like family, and this is how you repay us." I blinked, by being honest. Robert shook his head. "A good wife gives her husband a child." Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. That hurt more than anything else. Linda crossed her arms. "If you refuse to give this family a future, then you don't belong at this table." At first, I thought she was joking. She was. "Excuse me," I asked. "You heard me," she said coldly. "You should leave now." My ears rang. Jessica finally looked up. "Mom, that's harsh." Linda glared at her. "Stay out of it." I looked at Mark. "Are you going to say something?" He stood up halfway, then sat back down. "Emily, maybe you could cool off, go for a walk." A walk. I was being kicked out. At a family dinner. By my husband's parents. Because I refused to have a baby out of pressure. I laughed. It came out sharp and broken. "Wow, so this is who you are." Linda pointed toward the door. "Please don't cause a scene." I stood up slowly. My legs felt like jelly. "I didn't cause this scene," I said. "You did." No one stopped me. No one followed me. I grabbed my coat, my purse, and walked out into the cold night. The door shut behind me with a loud click that felt final. I stood on their porch for a moment, staring at the door. Then I cried. I cried so hard my chest hurt. I cried because I felt small. I cried because I felt stupid. I cried because I married into a family that only saw me as a baby-making machine. And the worst part, Mark didn't come after me. I drove home alone. When I got to our apartment, the silence was even worse than at the dinner table. I threw my keys on the counter and sank onto the couch. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. "Mom didn't mean it like that. You know how she is." I stared at the message. No apology. No defense. Just excuses. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying Linda's words in my head. "You don't belong at this table." Fine. I decided right then, and there I would build my own table. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a clear mind. I called in sick to work. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked our joint bank account. My stomach twisted. Large transfers, recent ones. I opened our financial app and scrolled slowly. My name was on the account, but the money was disappearing. I checked Mark's email on the shared laptop. I wasn't proud of it, but something felt wrong. What I found made my hands shake. Messages between Mark and his parents. Linda had been helping him manage money. There were words like investment, family support, and once Emily gives us a baby, it won't matter. My heart pounded. They weren't just pressuring me. They were planning around me. I scrolled further. Then I saw it. A message from Linda, sent the day before the dinner. If she refuses tonight, you know what to do. We can't waste more time on her. My mouth went dry. Waste time on me. I closed the laptop slowly. So that dinner wasn't just a conversation. It was a test. And I failed it. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't see a weak woman. I saw someone who had been underestimated. Mark came home late that night. He smelled like his mom's cooking. "Hey," he said carefully. I didn't answer. He sighed. "You embarrassed my parents." I turned to him slowly. "They kicked me out." They were emotional. "So was I said, "but I didn't throw anyone out." He rubbed his face. "Why are you making this so hard?" I smiled. That surprised him. "Because I finally see what's really going on," I said. "What do you mean?" I walked past him and grabbed my phone. "I mean," I said calmly, "you all thought I was too nice to notice." Mark frowned. "Notice what?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Everything." His phone buzzed. Then mine did. A notification from the bank. Another transfer. This one bigger. I smiled again, slower this time. They thought sending me away from the dinner table would break me. They had no idea it was the moment I woke up. And I was done being polite. Very soon, they would all realize something important. I didn't need their table. I didn't tell Mark what I found. Not yet. I needed to be smart, quiet, the kind of quiet that scares people later. The next morning, I woke up before him. I watched him sleep. His face looked peaceful, like he hadn't helped his parents humiliate his wife 2 nights ago. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. My hands were steady now. When Mark woke up, he acted normal, too normal. "Morning," he said, kissing my cheek like nothing had happened. I didn't pull away. "Morning," I replied. He looked relieved. That told me everything. At work, I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred on my screen. My boss asked if I was okay. I smiled and said I was just tired. But inside, my mind was racing. Linda's words echoed in my head. If she refuses tonight, you know what to do. What exactly was what to do? I decided to find out. That evening, I told Mark I was meeting an old friend for dinner. He barely looked up from his phone. "Okay, don't stay out too late." I drove somewhere else. Straight to Linda and Robert's house. My heart pounded as I rang the doorbell. Linda opened the door and froze when she saw me. "Oh," she said flatly, "you." I smiled sweetly. "Hi, Linda, I just wanted to clear the air." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Fine, come in." Robert was in the living room watching TV. He didn't even stand up. "So," he said, "have you come to apologize?" I laughed softly. "No, I came to listen." Linda frowned. "Listen to what?" I sat down slowly. "The truth." They exchanged a look. Linda crossed her legs. "We don't have time for games." "That's funny," I said, "because your messages say otherwise." Her face changed. Just for a second. That was all I needed. "I saw the emails," I continued calmly. "About the money, about the plans, about me." Robert turned off the TV. "You went through Mark's private things." "You went through my life," I replied. "I think we're even." Linda stood up. "You had no right." "No," I said, standing too. "You had no right to kick me out like trash." Her voice rose. You refuse to give us a grandchild. I refuse to be controlled, I said. Robert scoffed. You're replaceable. That one hit. But I didn't flinch. Am I asked quietly. Because last time I checked, half of Mark's savings came from my salary. Silence. Linda's lips tightened. Mark told us you wouldn't notice. I smiled. Mark lies, I said. Linda's eyes widened. What do you want? I leaned forward. I want respect. Robert laughed. You won't get that here. Then I'll take something else, I said. What? Linda snapped. The truth, I replied, and control of my own future. I walked out before they could respond. That night, Mark was waiting for me. Did you go to my parents' house? He asked. Yes. His face turned red. Why would you do that? Because I'm your wife, I said, or at least I thought I was. He paced the room. You're overreacting. I pulled out my phone and showed him the bank transfers. He stopped packing. You said you wanted a baby, I continued, but what you really wanted was to trap me. That's not true, he said weakly. Then why did you let your parents handle our money? I asked. He didn't answer. Why didn't you stand up for me? I asked. Still nothing. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. I went to the bedroom and locked the door. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The next few days were strange. Mark was suddenly nice, too nice. He cooked dinner, he cleaned, he even apologized. I should have defended you, he said one night. I was scared. I looked at him. Of what? Of disappointing my parents. I smiled sadly, and losing me wasn't scary. He didn't answer. Meanwhile, I was making calls. Quiet ones. I spoke to a lawyer during my lunch break. I learned things I didn't expect. I also spoke to my bank. Turns out, my name being on the account mattered a lot. One afternoon, Linda called me. Her voice was sugary. Emily, why don't you come over for tea? I laughed after hanging up. Tea? They thought they could fix this with tea. I went anyway. This time, I wasn't nervous. Linda smiled too much. Robert avoided my eyes. We may have been too harsh, Linda said. We're family. Are we? I asked. She nodded quickly. Of course. Then you won't mind if I take over managing our finances, I said. Robert choked on his drink. Linda stared. What? I won't have a baby under pressure, I continued, calm and clear. And I won't be pushed out of my own marriage. Linda's smile cracked. You're threatening us, she said. No, I replied. I'm setting boundaries. Robert slammed his hand on the table. You think you have power. I stood up. I know I do. As I walked toward the door, Linda called after me. You'll regret this. I turned back. So will you, I said softly. That night, Mark received a call from his father. I watched his face change as he listened. What do you mean the account is frozen? He asked. I sipped my tea. He hung up slowly and looked at me. What did you do? I smiled. Nothing, I said, yet. And that was when I knew. Mark didn't sleep that night. I could tell. He kept turning over, sighing, checking his phone like it might bite him. I lay on my side, facing the wall, wide awake but calm. For the first time in a long while, my heart wasn't racing. It was steady. In the morning, Mark followed me into the kitchen. Emily, he said quietly, my dad says the bank won't release the funds. I poured cereal into a bowl. That's what happens when money moves without consent. You froze our account, he said. Our account, I corrected, taking a bite. Yes. He rubbed his head. My parents are furious. I looked up at him. They were furious when I said no to a baby too. Funny how that works. He didn't argue. That scared me more than anger. At work, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Unknown numbers, voicemails. I didn't listen to them. I already knew who they were from. Linda, Robert, panic disguised as pride. When I got home that evening, Mark was sitting on the couch, hands folded, like a kid waiting to be punished. "We need to talk," he said. I hung up my coat. "Then talk." He swallowed. "My parents say you're tearing the family apart." I laughed. "They did that when they kicked me out of dinner." "They say you're being vindictive." I sat across from him. "No, I'm being careful." He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "You've changed." "No," I said softly. "I stopped pretending." That night, Linda showed up unannounced. She knocked like she owned the door. Mark jumped up. "Mom." She walked in without waiting for permission. Her hair was perfect. Her lips were tight. "Emily," she said sharply, "this has gone far enough." I crossed my arms. "You came all this way to apologize." She scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous." Mark stood between us. "Mom, please." She ignored him. "You embarrassed us at the bank. People talk." I smiled. "You embarrassed me at dinner. People watched." Her eyes flashed. "You're holding our money hostage." "I'm protecting mine," I replied. She leaned closer. "If you think Mark will choose you over his family, you're mistaken." I looked at Mark. He looked away. That told me everything I needed to know. Linda straightened. "We'll give you time, but this ends now." She turned and left. The door slammed. The apartment felt smaller after that. Mark sank onto the couch. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes," I said, "I did." He looked at me with something like fear. "What do you really want?" I thought about that. "I want the truth," I said, "all of it." He sighed. "What truth?" "About why you never defended me. About why your parents felt so comfortable controlling our lives. About what you planned to do if I kept saying no." He stood up suddenly. "You're imagining things." I pulled out my phone. One tap. I played a voice message. Linda's voice filled the room. "If she won't give us a baby, we'll find a way to push her out." Mark's face went white. "You saved that," he whispered. "I save everything," I said. He sat back down slowly. Outside, thunder rolled. That night, I packed a small bag. Mark watched from the doorway. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I can think," I said. "Are you leaving me?" I paused. "I don't know yet." I stayed with my friend Sarah. She listened. She didn't interrupt. She handed me tissues and ice cream and let me cry and laugh at the same time. "You're stronger than you think," she said. "I know," I replied. The next day, I met with a lawyer again. She looked serious. "Your husband's parents crossed legal lines." I nodded. I figured. "Do you want to proceed?" I thought about Linda's smile, the dinner table, the door closing behind me. "Yes," I said. That afternoon, Mark called. "I miss you," he said. I closed my eyes. "Do you miss me or do you miss the control?" Silence. Then he said, "My mom says we can fix this." I laughed softly. "She always thinks that." "Come home," he said, "please." "I will," I said. He sounded relieved. "Really?" "Yes," I replied. "Soon." I hung up and stared at my phone. Because what Mark didn't know, what Linda didn't know, was that I wasn't coming back the same woman they sent away from that dinner table. And when I did come back, I came back home on a Sunday afternoon. Not because I was weak, not because I missed the apartment, but because I was ready. Mark opened the door like a man holding his breath. He looked relieved, nervous, hopeful, and scared all at once. "You came back," he said. "Yes," I replied calmly, "to finish this." Linda and Robert were already inside. Of course they were. Linda stood up the moment she saw me, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Emily, we were just talking about you." I looked around the room. The same couch, the same table, the same people who once decided I didn't belong. Funny how quiet they were now. "I won't stay long," I said. "I just need to say a few things." Robert crossed his arms. We're listening. I took a deep breath. At that dinner, I began, you didn't just ask for a baby. You tried to control my body, my marriage, and my future. Linda opened her mouth, but I raised my hand. I'm not finished. Mark watched me closely. You kicked me out of your home like I was nothing. You assumed I would cry, beg, and come back apologizing. Linda swallowed. But instead, I continued, I learned who you really are. I turned to Mark. And I learned who you are too. He looked down. You chose silence when I needed protection, I said. You chose comfort over courage, and that hurt more than what your parents did. Mark's voice shook. I was wrong. Yes, I said, you were. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. What's that? Robert asked. Documents, I replied. Legal ones. Linda stiffened. About what? About finances, boundaries, and consequences. The room went still. I'm not having a baby under pressure, I said firmly, and I'm not staying in a marriage where I'm treated like property. Mark looked up sharply. Emily. I loved you, I said, but love without respect is a cage. Tears filled his eyes. Linda stood up. You're destroying this family. I looked at her, calm and unshaken. No, I stopped letting you destroy me. Silence filled the room. Then something unexpected happened. Jessica, Mark's sister, spoke. She's right, she said quietly. Everyone turned to her. You've always controlled everything, Jessica continued, and this time it backfired. Linda stared at her like she'd been betrayed. I picked up my bag. I'm done being sent away, I said. This time I'm walking out by choice. I turned to Mark one last time. This is where our story ends, I said gently, and where mine finally begins. I walked out. The door closed behind me. But this time, it didn't hurt. It felt like freedom. What they never understood was that the night they sent me away from the dinner table was the night they created the woman who would never be silenced again. I didn't look back after I walked out that door. Not once. The air outside felt lighter, like my lungs finally had space. I stood there for a moment, keys in my hand, and realized something simple but powerful. I was no longer afraid. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The lawyers handled what needed to be handled. Quietly, cleanly, the money was divided fairly. The lies didn't survive paperwork. They never do. Mark tried to call, then text, then apologize. I should have protected you, he wrote. I believed him. But believing him didn't mean going back. Some lessons come too late. Linda never apologized. Not really. Her last message was short and cold. You broke this family. I didn't reply. Because deep down I knew the truth. Families don't break because one woman says no. They break because control matters more than love. I moved into a small apartment of my own. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Plants by the window, a table I chose myself. Sometimes I eat dinner alone there. And every time I sit down, I smile. No one tells me what I owe. No one watches my body like it's a contract. No one decides my worth. I kept my values. I kept my dignity. And most importantly, I kept myself. The night they sent me away from that dinner table, they thought they were ending something. They were wrong. They were starting it. Because that was the night I learned this. A woman who can walk away with nothing is a woman no one can ever control again. And this time, I'm the one who decides who gets a seat at my table. Thanks for watching. Kindly drop your comment. And please subscribe to this channel for more interesting story.